Here's the solution to tracing a nested loop. Pay close attention to how we perform this trace. Notice that we have two loops. The outer loop, the variable is I, so we maintain the value of I. The inner loop has a value of j, which we also maintain. The other variable of interest for the program is sum, and all these variables happen to belong to the main. So let's get started. Okay, to begin with, we start in line 1, and line 1 really establishes these two variables. And initially they are undefined. It's a good idea to put a question mark there just to remind yourself that things are not defined. Now, line 2, we hit the for loop. When we hit the for loop, what do? We initialize the loop variable I to 4. Then we compare, is 4 greater than 1, and the answer is true. The fact that this is true means that we now enter the body of the outer loop, and that begins at line 3. And at line 3, what do? We set the sum to 0. Line 3, we set the sum to 0. Next, we go to line 4. What's line 4? Well, it's the beginning of the inner loop with the loop variable j. So we begin by initializing j to 1. Then we test the value of is j less than or equal to I. What's I? I happens to be a 4. 1 is less than or equal to 4, so that result is true, which means that we now enter the body of the inner loop, which begins at line 3. I'm in the wrong place. Line 5. At line 5, what do? We add the value of j to the sum. So sum was 0, j is a 1, so we add that to the sum, so sum becomes 1. After 5, we hit the bottom of the loop, which means what? We go back to the top of the loop. So we have 4 here. What happens at 4? Well, we don't initialize. Well, when we hit the loop for the second time, the value of the loop variable j needs to be increased by 2. So j is 3. And now we compare. Is j less than I? I is 4, j is 3, so that's true. Which means we now enter the body of the inner loop at statement 5. And at statement 5, we update the sum by adding j to it. Notice that j is 3, the sum is 1, so the new sum is 4. After 5, we go back to the top of the loop. 4. When we do that, what happens to j? J is incremented by 2 again, which makes it a 5. And now we compare. Is j, which is 5, is that less than or equal to I? I is 4. 5 is not less than or equal to I. So now the condition, the continuation condition right here, j less than or equal to 5, now becomes false. What happens when it becomes false? The next statement is 6. So when this loop terminates, we actually go from 4 down to 6. The termination of a pretest loop always occurs at the top of the loop right here. So from 4 we go to 6. Similarly, up here, when this loop terminates, we go from 2, where we make the decision to continue, down to the statement following the loop. So at 6, what's going to happen? We're going to output something. So what do we output at 6? Well, we output the sum, which is a 4, followed by a space. For right now, I'm going to put a caret to indicate a space. What comes after 6? Well, 6, what comes after 6 is this, which is the end of the loop. So if we're at the end of the outer loop, we must go back where? To the top of the outer loop, which occurs at 2. Now let's talk about what's going on at 2. When we get to 2, we need to modify the loop variable I by decreasing it. I'm going to decrease it by 2, so it now becomes a 2. Was a 4. And now we test the condition. Is I greater than 1? I is 2 is greater than 1, so the condition is true. Which means what? That we enter the body of the loop again. We enter it where? Statement 3. At 3, we set sum to 0. At 3, we set sum to 0. After 3, we hit 4. First time hitting 4, we're going to set J to 1. And now we've got to make the test. J is 1, I is 2. Is J less than or equal to 1? Is J, which is 1, less than or equal to 2? And the answer is yes. Because it's true, we enter the body of the loop, of the inner loop, and we enter at line 5. At line 5, we do what? We add J to the sum. The sum is 0. J is a 1. So sum becomes 1. After 5, we hit the bottom of the loop, so we go back to 4 again. At 4, we want to modify J by doing what? We're adding 2 to it. So J goes to 3. And now we do the test. Is J, which is 3, less than or equal to I, which is 2? And the answer is no. So that's a false. Which means what? The inner loop is done, so we go to the statement following the inner loop, which is statement 6. Sorry. What about statement 6? Well, it's an output statement, so we have to output what? The value of sum, which is a 1, and a space. After 6, 6 is the last statement in the body of the outer loop, so we go back to 2. What happens at 2? This is not the first time, so we basically need to update I by reducing it by 2, so that I now becomes 0. And now we must apply the continuation. Is I greater than 1? Well, I is 0. It's not greater than 1. So the result of the continuation test is false. Which means that the outer loop is done with. So we must terminate the outer loop and go to the statement that follows it, which is statement 7. And with that, our trace is concluded. Right? Again, when you put your answer in, you should omit the T and F's for the loop decisions. omit that for now. Okay. So we're going to